ever a time where you ask, like, where did I come from? Where am I now? And where am I going? And if there's people asking those questions now today, how would you speak into that? How would you reply to them?
I would reply very bluntly and say your life is kind of mapped out for you. In some regards, when you're in school, you'll have a careers teacher sit down and go through your options with you and pick subjects with you and tell you what you can do and what you should do and ask you what your interests are. But in some ways, like, that's mapping out what you're going to do. It's preparing you for where you're going to go. And the irony of that is, I'll not make up statistics, but a lot of the jobs now that people are in didn't exist 15, 20 years ago. And we can be fairly sure that a lot of the employment and things like that that's going to exist in 20 years doesn't exist now. The world we live in is changing. So putting down these maps and holding to them as kind of handrails to get you where you want to go, when you think of it in the longer term, you're just like, you're white knuckling it. You're just holding on and trying to retain control. And what you should be really doing at this point is figuring out your identity as a person, what your values are, what you stand for. So in the non-religious sense, it doesn't matter so much what I choose, but it matters hard that whatever I choose, I put passion into it and I work hard at it and I have a good work ethic. And from a religious point of view, it doesn't matter if you get an A, a B, a C, or whatever. It doesn't matter if you make the team. It doesn't matter if your friends don't text you to come out with you. That your identity is, you're a child of God, created by a God who came down, who died on a cross. And you only have to look at a crucifix to realize how mental that is, that God came from heaven to earth to die in the most painful way possible, arguably for you, individually, you, not the you plural, the world, but you, the individual. And when you reflect on that for a bit, suddenly the mapping out of where are you going to go and how are you going to get there becomes less important, because you know that you have a value in and of yourself. It doesn't matter if you're not invited out by your friends. You are loved by God and created by God. And it doesn't matter if you get a B and not an A, because you are loved by God. So if you know your identity as a person and you know your value and you know your worth, you will take that worth and that into whatever you do, whatever job you do. You will work hard at it. You will witness to God in it. You'll serve him in it. Like as St. Therese said, by her little way, as Mother Teresa said, you'll do small things with great love. All of these saints testify to doing the little things and giving witness to God because you know who you are. And if there's people listening to this and you're thinking, okay, you're talking a lot about work here, but those things will also go into relationships. Like if you are going into the seminary, you will pursue the seminary and you'll pursue God with that vigor, with that openness, and you'll go after it wholeheartedly. And if you're pursuing marriage, as Stephen said, like Youth 2000 has bred many vocations in Ireland, both to the religious life and to holy marriages. If you're going after marriage, you'll go after it in a much better way. And I know this from personal experience, because when I was at university, the thing that mattered most to me is that a person was beautiful. And I remember at the time thinking, oh, this is okay. I can justify this to myself. Of course, I want my other half to be as beautiful as possible. But my motivation at the time wasn't pure. And it wasn't pure because I didn't want that person to be beautiful because I thought they were beautiful. I wanted the boys, my male friends, to comment on that person and be like, oh, Peter's done well. So I was looking at other people's affirmation through choosing a relationship, not thinking about the person, but thinking about other people. And when I look back on it, that is so wrong. It's so wrong. I still want my other half to be the most beautiful person in the world. But now it's because I want her to be a reflection of God. I want her to have really good values. I want my other half to share my values, to want the same things, to want to pursue God with me. Instead of going out partying, I want to go to the cinema, I want to go to restaurants, but I also want to pray together. want to go to mass together because I want to share these things. And if you start back with who am I, who's my identity, who am I to God, then things will play out in your relationship. You will treat your other half better. You will treat the people around you better, but also your expectations will rise. You will raise your own bar. You won't let people treat you as poorly because you know your value. You are a child of God, and you're not going to let people treat you poorly because you're better than that. And you also won't treat anyone else poorly because you'll know their value. You'll know they're a child of God and they deserve to be treated in a certain way. But it all starts back with not your careers teacher in school or not your friends inviting you out at the weekend. It's about sitting and looking at a cross. For me, it was looking at the Eucharist. So I'd really advise that if you get a chance, go look Jesus face to face. It's a little bit more difficult now, and pandemic and all of that stuff that's going on. But look at a crucifix, man, and just say, "That's God. God died for me, and that means I am of unbelievable value that I cannot even imagine." Things will change then. Start with that. When I say things will change, they'll change slowly, really slowly. But you have to do that day in, day out, day in, day out. If you said to me, Peter, I want to get in shape or I want to lose weight or whatever it is, I would say to you, well, do an hour a day for a year. And those gains, whether it's muscle or fat loss or whatever it is, the gains will show at the end of the year, you'll be physically transformed. You spend a couple of minutes in prayer a day, and I promise you, at the end of the year, a couple of minutes will have transformed your entire existence. You will just be a different human being, and people will notice you different. You'll treat them different, and you will be unbelievably happier because you've spent that time with God and you'll know Him better. But it's not a case of going to the gym and wrecking yourself for 6 hours or going to the church and wrecking yourself for 6 hours. You have to put that in, day out. It's funny how the body and the soul, like we're an incarnate being. The body and the soul can be looked at quite similarly at times, and in terms of training or prayer, very similar.
And so you within that training, how do we discern where we're going? How do we figure it out? I'm sure there's people all over the country, all over the world asking, I just love to know where I'm going. How do we find out what we're meant to be, where we're meant to be going?
That is the $1,000,000 spiritual question of how do I know for sure what I'm meant to be doing? How do I know for sure what I'm meant to be? I cannot remember the name of the saint. So if anyone listening knows the name of the saint, but I only was reading some things recently and I came across one of her quotes, which was, in God's will, there's an abundance of peace. And it hit me. I cannot remember who said that. It was a saint, but we'll most likely the all-knowing Google will find out who it was. But in God's will, there is an abundance of peace. And I remember that hit me like a ton of bricks because as a 34-year-old man, I would say I've lived 99% of my life not in peace, with some kind of anxiety towards what do I need to do next? What do I need to be? Is this the right thing? Is this the wrong thing? And I have felt that in career. And am I doing the right job? Am I doing the right degree? Am I doing the right master's? Whatever it is. I have felt that in relationships. Is this person the right one? Is this person the right one? And I have felt it with direction, even in ministry as well. And are we doing the right thing? Is this what God wants us to do? And what I would say to anyone who's trying to figure it out, there's kind of, I don't ever like giving lists, but there's the big three that I would really, really encourage you to do is sit in the pocket with God. If you want to find out if it's God's will, you just need to do eyeball time with God. Now, there's no substitute for this. It can be eyeball time with the Bible. It can be eyeball time with the Eucharist. But I'm using eyeball time because it's a phrase that I picked up off Father Mike Schmidt. But I found it very, very interesting because you know how you can sit with somebody and be on your phone? Well, it's not quality time. You know how you can sort of be somewhere with someone and you can just be daydreaming. But if I'm looking at you dead in the eye and I've got your attention and you've got mine, you're doing some eyeball time and you're in the pocket, man. You're focused, you're in the zone, as they say. So do some eyeball time with the Lord through scripture. Do some eyeball time with the Lord in the Eucharist. Do some eyeball time in the Lord in just silence, just sitting with him, just saying, I'm just going to sit with you, Lord, and I'm going to tell you all my problems. I'm going to talk until I'm fed up of talking. And when I'm fed up of talking, I'm just going to sit in the silence and I'm going to let you direct my thoughts. I'm going to sit in the silence and I'm going to let you direct my mind. I'm going to let you speak to me. Now, when people say speak, they get a little bit like, am I going to hear a voice? I don't know. I haven't heard a voice. But to say to the Lord, I'm just going to sit, be in silence. I'm going to let you guide my thoughts. I'm going to let you direct my thoughts. That's, and that can again be the rosary. But the first thing is do that eyeball time with him, and do it every day, whether it's 5 minutes. Like I have a spiritual director who's currently making me do 15 minutes a day of eyeball time with the Lord, and I'm not doing it. Like I have a Google spreadsheet that I put it in, and it's an absolute shambles at the minute, and I'm ignoring his emails because I'm embarrassed. Like I'm embarrassed to go to him like, oh, I missed it again today. I missed it again today. But I love him to bits because he is relentless, as in, why not replying to me? Peter, what's happening with your prayer life? He's so good. And that's what I would say is talk to good and holy friends and people. That's the second thing about it. Talk to them, tell them about it, listen to what they have to say, and feel free to take their advice on board or feel free to ignore it. But sometimes we get trapped up in our own minds and things become really big when they're not really big, or vice versa. But if you're talking it out with good and holy people that you trust, they will be able to shed light on it that maybe you couldn't see. So number one would be do the eyeball time with the Lord to discern. The second one is talk to good and holy people. When you're discerning, the third one is, I would say, is that quote, there is an abundance of peace when you're doing God's will. If you are restless, if there's something just not sitting right with you, I think the restlessness is worth investigating. Why am I restless? Why am I not at peace? Why am I not content? What's going on here? And it's good to ask those questions. You know, why? What am I doing? What's happening? So if you're discerning, I don't know, a relationship, a friendship, a job, whatever it is, try those three. Do a bit of eyeball time with Jesus. Talk to some good and holy friends with it, and just investigate why the restlessness. Yeah. Did we find out who that quote was? We didn't, did we?
No, not yet.